Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the world's biggest stars and some of my favourite people. And we've got one for you today. Marcella Detroit is the lady from Detroit who became world renowned for her song by Shakespears' sister. That classic song, Stay, that we love to listen to today. It's still a huge hit on the radio and was 8 weeks in the UK charts. Since then, she's gone on to have a remarkable solo career, 3 top albums, and she's got a new album out right now. As well as that, she's got a single that you can listen to, and it's fantastic, called Drag Queen. It's a dancey number, high energy, and it's fabulous, and I'm delighted to say that Marcella joins us on the phone now. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm delicious, but not as good as you. I mean, you've had a remarkable career, and what's amazing when I look at your CV is the people you've worked with. That's a great blessing, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate and worked with some incredible people like Clapton and Elton John and Leon Russell, Bob Seger, Aretha Franklin. I mean, yeah, a lot of people, and I'm really very fortunate.
I've got friends in Detroit. It is amazing how that place sort of embodies music. I wonder whether your upbringing there with the Motown stuff was sort of unavoidable, that you'd end up in a career singing, because it is a place synonymous with great music.
Yeah, at an early age, I was listening to the radio and stuff. So I think I already had an affinity towards music. And I think, being brought up on listening to Motown my entire childhood probably did inspire me to want to get into music, but I already had that desire there from a very early age. I was always playing instruments and singing in school choirs. So it was just maybe a natural progression for me in particular.
What's remarkable too, we got to see you just a few years ago on ITV doing that opera show, and your voice isn't just pop. I mean, it's a proper classically trained, powerful machine, isn't it?
Well, it was then. I mean, I worked really hard. That was probably one of the hardest things vocally I've ever done in my life. There was a lot of training and a lot of study. Not only did we get 2 hours a day of training and vocalizing and coaching, but that started on the Sunday when we got our new song. And it went until Friday when we did our live show. But I am the kind of person where I take everything like way too seriously. My husband has to remind me all the time, hey, what about your sense of humor? What about having fun? I used to call him at around 3:00 in the morning, London time. We live in LA, so it was an 8-hour time difference. I used to call him going, oh my God, I just woke up. I can't get this song out of my head. It's so hard. I got to make sure I get the melody right because, in opera, there's no room for improvisation. I mean, it's all written. And, whenever I used to kind of veer off the melody, I'd get like a verbal slapping. Like, oh, no. You have to stick exactly to the melody. So luckily, I can read a little bit, so I knew when I was veering off. But, I mean, I would wake up in the middle of the night singing the melodies, memorizing the words, just making sure. That's kind of how my mind works when I'm in a real kind of, not like bad stress, but a good stressful situation like I was with that. I just focused all my energies sleeping, in my dreams, waking, getting up from, in the middle of the night, whatever. That was just my primary focus.
Don't you find with most great artists, the very best, that there is a very thin line between being professional and obsessive compulsive about it? Most greats can't switch it off, can they?
You mean like crazy? Yeah.
Well, a little bit.
Well, you have to be a little bit crazy to be in the music business in the first place.
I mean, you really did have the halcyon days when pop stars could be rock stars and you could have longevity and success. Now it seems they sort of have you in and spit you out very quickly.
Yeah, I think it's probably always been like that to a certain degree, but I think even more so now. With the advent of certain television shows that want to cultivate young talent. Although The Voice, what I like about that is at least they'll listen. It's all about the voice. It's not about the age. But it is a very age-oriented business, and a few people have been able to kind of sustain their careers over a very long period of time. But there still is a struggle with that. I think you have to be true to yourself, but you also have to adapt to the times and what's going on if you want that real, longevity.
It's a very interesting time for women. Has there ever been a better time? It seems like we're finally getting to a point where we won't any longer have to talk about the divide between men and women. For a guy who's 36, it seems utterly ridiculous to me. But for some people, they just can't accept that women are as good, if not better, than men.
Really? Yeah, I know. I find it fascinating. And I hope that, like you said, one day we won't even be having this discussion about, whether women are as good as men. I think, back in the old days when there were a lot more women rulers. I don't know, maybe men got frightened by their power because women can be incredibly powerful, and perhaps that's what they're frightened of, their power, and that being taken away from them. I don't know. I don't quite get it. And of course I'm biased being a woman, but I think it's fantastic. And it's quite surprising that over here in America that's never happened.
Don't you find it ironic also that the most powerful person in media in the last 20 years is a black woman, Oprah Winfrey? Yet we forget that she is at the top, and that's remarkable too.
Yeah, well, maybe just because she's not political, but right. In a way, she is political in what she talks about at times. But she just kind of did it herself. Yep. She got her own network and called OWN, and she just made it happen. It just takes that kind of focus. I think it's especially hard for women now. I mean, I can tell you that when I was just starting out and I had a solo record out in the 80s, my record company, it was Epic Records, and my manager said they went to some radio stations, and some of them said, "Oh, we've already added our quota of female artists for the week." And I found that really frustrating, disappointing, disheartening,
terrible.
That you judge your music on whether you're a woman or a man and whether they could add you or not because of your sex. That's just weird to me. It's also very apparent in the world, other than in music, but in so many other areas of our life and our society, how it still influences, people and who they might vote for, what they believe in. There's still so much in this country. It's become apparent that there's still so much racism. And it's just sad that we have candidates now that are promoting, bigotry and sexism and xenophobia. I mean, it's just really disappointing. We think at this time in our world, in our lives, it would be different than that, but unfortunately.
Yep. Let's go back to the 90s, an interesting decade for music, and the decade where we got to know you through Shakespears' Sister. That song, Stay, undoubtedly one of the biggest hits in the world ever, and so beautiful. How do you feel about that song now? I know what happened afterwards may not have been to your liking, but do you agree that it's still a wonderful song?
Of course. I'm very proud of that song, and I still sing it, when I do shows, and sometimes I'm asked to come and do like performances for, private events where I just do that song, and I'm really proud of it, and I can just play on acoustic guitar, and it sounds good that way, or it sounds good, with a full band. So, I mean, it's something to be really proud of.
And it was indeed the longest running number one for a female band in UK history, which is a remarkable achievement and still played today. Does that ever become normal when you're driving down the freeway or the motorway over here and you hear it come on the radio? That must be strange.
Well, it's, it's a proud moment for me, and you think, wow, if people in the next car, if I said, hey, that's me on the radio, they would be nuts, right? Sometimes I've been in a supermarket and I hear one of my songs that I'm singing on come on, and I start beaming inside thinking, oh, wow, that's really cool. My song playing at my local market.
Incredible. Let's go back to the beginning and when you had your big break. What was the year for you when you thought you'd made it, even if you hadn't, you thought you had?
Well, I think it was when I started working. Well, first of all, when I started working in the music industry, my father said to me, your chances of making it are 1,000,000 to 1. And I thought, oh, great, thanks, Dad. But, he was right in one way, but another way, it really inspired me to, and I was thinking, well, watch me. I'm going to do it. I think when I started working with, well, first it was Seeger. I knew I was on my way. I was in a local band in Detroit and called Julia, and Seeger picked us up. And then we went on to work with, I went on to move to Oklahoma, believe it or not. It was a big music scene. And I moved to Tulsa, and I wanted to work with Leon Russell because he was one of my idols back then. And I got to work with him. When I saw that I was actually, I was really focused, and he was somebody that I wanted to work with, and I focused on that, and I made that happen. I was like, wow, I am very determined, and I know when I make up my mind I want to do something, it happens.
Yeah.
Which is, wow, that's pretty remarkable. And then when that translated later into me working with Clapton, and I was playing, Clapton, and I was doing shows with him to like over 100,000 people quite regularly. I thought, well, yeah, I guess I've made it, as a background singer. But I always had aspirations to make it as a solo artist.
Let's just talk about Clapton for a little bit, if we can. For 5 years you worked with him. He undoubtedly up there in the top 10 greatest artists of all time, would you say? I mean, how do you rank him?
Oh, absolutely. I think what he did well with Cream, with Yardbirds, and then with Cream, and from that point, especially from Cream, it was like, wow, Eric Clapton was, according to some people, God. And when I got to work with him, Derek and the Dominoes, though, I have to say, aside from, my work with him, but I still think that was his most amazing, prolific, and inspired time. I just love those albums. And I really am proud to say that I worked with him and co-wrote some of his biggest hits after that.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. Lay Down Sally. It doesn't get any bigger than that. How does that work then? You sit down on a tour bus, you're bored, you're drinking a Diet Coke, and suddenly you come up with this. How did it happen?
Well, we were actually in London. It was in '77. We were recording the Slow Hand album, what would become the Slow Hand album. And in those days, we just, we went in the studio. We didn't really have the songs beforehand. Sometimes, we would bring an idea in, or Eric would have an idea. He would bring it in. But mostly it was just, okay, let's get in the studio and see what we come up with. So that particular day, we were in a studio called Olympic, which is, it was in London, in Barnes, great studio that so many hits were recorded at. And Eric, we were recording, and Eric said, hey, Marcy, I want to write a song called Lay Down Sally. And so I thought, wow, that's a great title. And I don't know where it came from, other than it could possibly have been his right-hand man named Alfie had a wife named Sally, so maybe he heard her say that one night. Wow. And I don't know what happened. I immediately picked up a guitar, and it was a whole different group. In fact, I had my guitar, and I just picked up a guitar. I went and sat on a drum riser, and it started off the way I initially started singing it with the melody was with, like, I don't know if your listeners are hip to what's called a New Orleans or second line beat or groove. It's like a Bo Diddley, like that. And I just started singing the melody. It just came to my head. I don't know. I just started singing, Lay Down Sally. It went on like that. We worked on it all day. And after about 5 hours, the keyboard player left. He got bored. Eric suddenly started, because we were working on it, we're trying to get a verse, and it wasn't sounding good. And then he just changed it to what it became on the record. He just changed the groove, and the producer Glenn John said, "Oh, we got to record it." So we recorded it, and Eric said, "Okay, you got to go write the rest of the words." So that night I went back to the hotel, came back the next day with the lyrics, and we recorded it, and that's how it happened.
I know we're only on Skype today. That was so glorious, just hearing that couple of seconds. One of the biggest thrills in my life was going to Benny Anderson's home and saying to him, "Would you just play me a little bit of Thank You for the Music on the piano?" And he did. Would you be kind enough to just play me 30 seconds of Lay Down Sally and hear you sing it? Because that was beautiful.
Oh, thanks. But you just want to hear the chorus?
I'd just love to hear you do it.
There ain't nothing that is wrong, wanting you to stay here with me. I know you got somewhere to go, when you make yourself at home, stay with me. Don't you ever leave me. Lay down, Sandy, or rest here in my arms. Don't you think you want someone to talk to?
Wow, stunning. What a glorious voice you have. What a gift, hey. You must wake up in the morning and thank somebody for that. Who do you put it down to? Divine intervention? Do you believe in God? Where does that voice come from?
I don't know. Thank you. I don't know. No one in my family really sang. My dad could sing pretty well. He played ukulele, and he encouraged me musically. Apparently, I had ancestors that were musicians, and they played violin. They were concert violinists, and I took up violin. But I guess that was kind of like maybe a natural way for me to go to get into music. But as far as being singers, my dad had a pretty good voice, but he never really sang more than a few things around the house. But we used to sing harmony together all the time.
Wow. Then we look at your confidence and how you stand on a stage and sing a song, whether it be Lay Down Sally or any of your other hits, in front of those big crowds. Are you a nervous person? Do you lose sleep over that, or is that thrilling?
Well, I was brought up to be. I didn't really learn a lot of confidence. Any confidence from my role model, especially my mom. She bless her, she's not well right now, but she has always been a very nervous person. And when you're growing up, you mirror that. It's your role model. So I had a tendency to mirror that, and I've had to do a lot of work to deal with it, and I still do. I feel very confident when I'm at home singing in my little studio, but sometimes when I'm in front of lots of people, it can be a little bit daunting.
And then when you're stood next to someone like Eric Clapton or Leon Russell or one of the many stars that you perform with, does that give it an extra thrill or an extra edge of nerves? Because, they're looking at you and you're looking at them, and that bar has got to be raised, hasn't it?
Yeah, but in a way, it's a little bit more of it's a little bit more comforting because I'm backing them up. I'm there for them, and it's not just about me. It's about them. So it makes it a little bit easier.
And then we look at your name and your talent and your legacy that continues with this new album that we're going to talk about next. Is it still strange when people know who you are before you've told them? I always find when interviewing celebrities like yourself, that's one of the oddest gifts that celebrity gives you, is that people know you and they think you're a friend and they love you for your music, yet you often don't know them. That's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of strange. And sometimes I think people, they kind of assume that you are possibly a friend, and some of them try to maybe take advantage or become possessive, and that gets a little bit weird.
Right.
That I don't really feel comfortable with. But mostly, you know what? I've been so lucky. I have incredible fans who are really supportive, and they have been for many, many years, and I'm truly grateful for them, for that, because if they weren't interested in what I do, then, well, I'd have to do something else.
Can there be a day in your life when you don't pick up the guitar and sing to yourself?
Well, if I'm getting ready to do a gig, I rehearse a lot. And sometimes I take a break. It's kind of, I feel like it's good to get away from it sometimes, especially when it comes to writing. I need to store up ideas and inspiration. I want to get to that point where, I can't wait to get to my guitar and write something. But usually it's almost every day that I'm either playing my guitar or my piano.
I remember Adele saying when she wrote that first album that it was just one negative experience after the next that led to this beautiful album. Have you found a way of now creating an album such as this new one, Grey Matters, which is out now? We'll give the big plug at the end. It's available via the Marcella Detroit website. You can get it there and find out more details. The new single, of course, is called Drag Queen. Can you draw from personal stuff that's positive? Because you don't want to be stuck in that place where horrible things have got to happen to get a hit, have you?
No, but everything that I write these days is all about, it's autobiographical. I only write about what I know about these days, unless I'm writing with other people and, they have, with other artists. But not everything I write about anymore is about negative experiences. And a lot of those negative experiences that she may be talking about are maybe unrequited love or, being hurt, whatever most people write about, it's always usually about love, and not being on the bad side of things. But I don't really I'm really lucky because I've been in a really long relationship, and it's a very good, healthy, happy relationship. So I don't necessarily write about that anymore. And some people might find that boring. There's not that angst in what I do, but I write about other things that are important to me, like the being grateful for that love, or write about things that are going on in the world that really affect me, that make me either upset, or things that are beautiful. And I feel like what I write about now is much more of a broad spectrum, rather than just one thing. So I feel good about what I'm writing about these days.
You always seem to have kept your feet on the floor, and you don't seem to have gone off the deep end as so many do. Do you think that's partly down to long-term love? It seems this business, if you're alone or lonely, can sort of spit you out, and then you're left in a very dark place. Is that comfortable home life partly to do with the fact that you're able to have this conversation today, and some nearly 30 years after you started, you're still on your top of your game and touring and performing?
Here's the thing. I think when you base your self-esteem and your self-worth on what you do, it can really lead to disaster, personal disaster. And I have to admit that I have done that a lot in my life. I'm a very results-oriented person. I don't feel like I've achieved what I want to achieve, and in some ways that's really bad, because it doesn't actually let me be grateful for what I have now. And that's what I'm working on. I've been working on that for the past year, because I found at one point I was going down a dark path, and I didn't achieve the kind of success as a solo artist I wanted to achieve, and I was not recognizing what I had done, regardless of whether it was me as a solo artist or all the other incredible achievements. So I'm just working on, rather than focusing on the outcome and the result, I'm working on the journey and enjoying the journey. And that's making me a lot happier than I was maybe 2 years ago.
One of the greatest things I ever heard Oprah Winfrey say is, you never evolve as a person until you're present. And I thought about what she meant. And so often in this business, we can miss the moment, can't we? You just sang Lay Down Sally to me on my phone whilst I'm sat there in my office. That's a moment I'll remember forever. You must be present during this stuff, because you sometimes years later think, my God, I missed it. I wasn't there. And that's a shame.
Yeah, that's so true. But sometimes being in the present can be frightening. There's fear involved, and I must admit that I have felt like a lot of fear and anxiety, depression, and it stops you. Depression's about the past, anxiety's about the future, and I have felt both of those things. So I am definitely working on being in the moment, being here, being grateful, being happy now, and enjoying the present moment, rather than, well, what about in a month, or what about next year? Or
right.
It's a recipe for disaster.
And I guess, like that old showbiz saying, you're only as good as your last show, you're only as good as your last single. And your new one is called Drag Queen. This is great and perfect timing for the summer. It's a beautifully uplifting, sort of dancey tune, and beautifully sung too. Different to what we know you for. Congratulations. I loved it.
Yeah, well, when I sat down to write the album about a year ago, I didn't really put any limitations or any kind of ideas about, it's got to be about this, got to be about that. This song happened because I actually met a drag queen through a friend. I saw her perform, and her voice was incredible, and my friend said, you guys should write together. And so we did. A few weeks later, she opened her door, but as a man. Was incredibly stunning as a man as well, beautiful as a drag queen, but beautiful as a man. And I found that, oh my God, after the course of the day, I developed a little crush on her. And I came home and told my husband, I can't believe it, I have a crush on this guy, this drag queen. He laughed. But then I went to bed that night, and I had a dream about the drag queen in my dream, that I was kissing her as the man, or as a drag queen rather, and I just thought, okay, I woke up and I thought, all right, that's just weird. I have to write a song about it. And after I wrote several songs, they were all in this kind of dance genre, and I did make a foray into the dance world a few times. In 2000, when I did my Dancing Madly Sideways album, it's very electronic, very dance. And then, like in 2005, I did another a few songs with a UK band called Love Rush UK, and it was very dance. So I've done that here and there. But yeah, this whole album, after I wrote about 5 or 6 songs, they were all sounding pretty dance and very consistent. I just thought, wow, okay, well, I'm just going to keep writing like this. And I really enjoyed it. I just did it all at home, all the production, everything here at my house. And then I sent it to a friend in the UK. It was a great mixer named Paul Drew. And he mixed it and added a few other elements to make it sound more like a record. And that was pretty much it.
Congratulations, it's really lovely. The new album is called Grey Matters. It's out now. The high-energy lead single, entitled Drag Queen, is a must-listen. You can hear it on YouTube. And we thank you so much, Marcella Detroit, for talking to us today. What a legend, what a star. And please come back to England. We want to see you live soon.
Yeah, thank you. I want to get back there. It's my second home. I have to get back sometimes.
You must. I mean, we've got a lot of these sort of 70s, 80s, 90s revival shows touring the UK, doing huge business in arenas. You'd be perfect for those. And that's what's amazing about you too, of course. You're across the generations.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm still going. What I love to do.
Keep on keeping on. Grey Matters is the new album out now. Marcella Detroit is our special guest. Thank you for talking to me.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you.